Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
All right, so it looks like we have our committee members, but do we have all of the necessary staff?
We do. I think everybody is on and sound and video checked, so we should be ready to get started.
All righty, let's go ahead and do that. It's 10:02 a.m. And just dive into our agenda. The first order of business is to approve the June 2nd meeting minutes. Councilmember Marcano and Medina, do you approve those meeting minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, so do I. Meeting minutes approved. Do we have any announcements for the good of the whole? I'm not seeing anyone. Okay. All right, let's move on to the meat of our conversation. Let's see, agenda item 4A, community development investment and private activity bond assignments. Is that Alicia that will be doing the presentation today?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning,
right.
everyone.
Good
Thank
morning.
Let me see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. All right. So, as you know, I'm Alicia Montoya, the Housing and Community Development Manager here in the city of Aurora. And previously, we had presented the community development investment rounds. Part of the funding in those investment rounds was private activity bonds. Just about $21 million of that was private activity bonds. And part of the process of us being able to utilize or assign the private activity bond funding is that we have to distribute it to the projects that we assigned the private activity bond to. So that's what this is really about. So we have three objectives today. Just wanted to provide you with a quick update on just the community development investment rounds. The first one that we had earlier this year, the assignment of the private activity bond, and then we also are live with our summer 2022 round. So we have the second round live now. So I just wanted to provide you with a quick update on that as well. You may already be familiar with some of this. I went too fast. Sorry. I got excited. There we are. All right. So you may already be familiar with the private activity bond, but just some basics on the private activity bond. We get a certain amount assigned to the city of Aurora each year, and then the city of Aurora has the ability to assign that activity bond to different types of investments. Affordable housing is one of those investments, and so in the city of Aurora, we have been utilizing the private activity bond towards affordable housing. And that includes new construction, acquisition, rehab, just affordable housing in general that is targeted towards the low and moderate income individuals or families. There is a very specific benefit of utilizing the private activity bond, and that is that the interest paid to the bondholders is exempt from federal income tax, which generally makes their project cheaper too. So this is a great incentive that we're utilizing in the city of Aurora towards the creation of affordable housing. As I explained at the beginning, we had our first round of community development investment earlier this year. And through that community development investment, we assigned $21 million towards 3 different projects that had already been approved in the previous May 9th City Council meeting. And that was the Fitzsimmons Gateway Apartments, the Aurora Metro Center Senior Housing Station, and then the Weatherstone Apartments. So we did 11 million for Fitzsimmons, 5 million for Aurora Metro Center Station, and then another 5 for Weatherstone Apartments. Attached to the commentary are 2 documents, and that is the assignment of allocation to Aurora Housing Authority. So what we do is we assign the private activity bond to the Aurora Housing Authority, and then they distribute the funding to the different projects that we recommended through the community development investment rounds. And so my goal is that you approve the assignment to the Aurora Housing Authority. But before we do that, I do want to check with you guys and see if you have any questions.
I'll open it up to the committee members if you have any questions. Feel free.
None from me.
For me.
Same here. No questions.
Okay, awesome. Well, with that, does the Horns Committee support the assignment of the city's private activity bond allocation for the year of 2022 to the Aurora Housing Authority?
Councilmember Marcano, Councilmember Medina.
Yes.
I support it as well. Councilmember Marcano.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. Thank you both.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And then the last item I have, and this is way quicker than 15 minutes, but I feel better that it's short than overtime. But just a quick update, we are live with our summer 2022 round of community development investment. And so we have just about 300,000 of CDBG funds available. We have another $1 million of home funds and another $2 million of ARPA funds that we are going to be assigning through the community development investment rounds. The deadline to apply is July 8th, so it's Friday. That's actually tomorrow. So it's coming up fast, but it was on for a couple of weeks. And so individuals are actively working on their applications. The community development investment round was advertised through a press release, the newspaper, and also our website. So, yeah, and that is all I have for you guys.
And that's just information only. If anyone, well, I guess it's due tomorrow, so I'm assuming folks aren't starting their application today to submit tomorrow.
Correct. Yeah, we've had some questions go back and forth already. So,
what are some themes that have emerged in the questions that people have asked you about the application? Is there like any, I don't know, any trends of like things people are wanting to do that they wanted more information on, or anything you can share about that back and forth?
yeah, I've had a couple of people reach out and ask if they can come back and ask for additional funding for their projects. And that is about it. I'm not seeing any other questions. The application of Neighborly has been streamlined. It was streamlined before we posted the second round this year again, just to make sure that we prevent any hiccups that we might have seen in the previous round, things like that. But yeah, other than that, I haven't seen any other questions come up. So yeah, we'll see what comes through the application system.
Gotcha. And folks, just to be clear, can apply for future funding if they're awarded funding. I think it's a matter of like balancing our priorities, you know, from a housing strategy perspective and trying to be, I would say my understanding of like how we internally make decisions is like being you know, trying to support multiple organizations to like benefit from like city support. So trying to be kind of high level, at least considerate and aware of the pool of folks who we offer money to, while also just understanding the benefit that and evaluating the benefit of prior funding that organizations have received and their ability to follow through on those commitments. Is that pretty, does that kind of align with how decisions are made?
Yeah, that, and then I encourage everyone to apply, regardless if they had received previous funding. I also remind everyone that our priority right now is the housing strategy. So the decisions that we make through the review committee for this round of funding is going to be to support the housing strategy in the city of Aurora. So yeah, everyone is strongly encouraged to apply if they're interested in any of the funding that we are distributing through the development rounds.
Perfect. Alrighty, well, thank you for your presentation this morning.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next is the city greenhouse overview. I believe Brooke Bell will be the presenter today.
Yes, good morning. How are you all doing today? My name is Brooke Bell, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Thank you for your time. As I understand it, Councilmember Murillo has already visited the greenhouses. I am uncertain with regard to the other council members. However, I will be reviewing the current operations over there, current conditions, and then potential next steps. I understand that I want to make sure you can see the presentation. Let me share that here. Are you able to see that?
Yes, but we do see it in, it's not like in presentation mode
Okay.
yet. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. How is that?
Perfect.
Right.
Actually, we can see we can see your notes. So if you just go to display settings.
Okay.
Up top. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I see it there. And then, how is that?
I think that's good.
Perfect. Thank you for the assistance there. So we're talking about the greenhouse, and as I understand it, the question is, what is the current interest? What is the cost to restore the greenhouse for a potential public-private partnership in the future? And I'll speak through the current conditions and then talk about the potential next steps. The greenhouse, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is located just north of the central maintenance facilities. This is Potomac. And then we have 2nd Avenue here, the Highline Canal, and it sits tucked away between 2nd Avenue and Highline Canal. If you've been over in the area, the drive there is quite pretty with trees and vegetation, and that's the greenhouses sit behind there. These are the 3 greenhouses in question. 2 are relatively good size, between 3,000 and 4,000 square feet. And then we have a very tiny one that's less than 400 square feet. The greenhouses were built in the mid-70s, so they're coming up on 50 years as far as their age. They have been used for decades to grow annual plants that we had throughout the city due to a drought in the early 2000s, the decision to remove those flowers because the high water consumption rate was made, and the greenhouses fell into disrepair over the years, and they are used primarily now for storage. You see here, we did up until just 6 months ago, we had two very passionate individuals in parks operations and maintenance who did a lot of work in the greenhouse to grow smaller set of plant material flowers that we put around AMC. They were experimenting with seed germination and also some plant material that would be put out in the parks. It was it was a passion project for these two individuals, while they also did this in association with their responsibilities to the maintenance and operations group. Those individuals, one is retired and one has left the city, so we don't have that use of the facilities as much as we used to. The condition of the greenhouses, they are in poor condition. The irrigation and the essential mechanical systems have been removed. The cover skin needs to be replaced. So if we were to bring these up into functional condition, we would want to do a conditions assessment of the buildings, to look at the structure, to look at all the mechanical systems, even the drainage systems and the flooring, the skin, and determine what the cost would be to make those improvements, whether it be one building or several buildings. So the considerations for the future use of the greenhouse, it's the cost that I just talked about. What would it take to bring those up into current standards? Are there even green amenities or sustainable amenities that you would want to add to those greenhouses as well? And we would explore that as well. For instance, is there a way to recycle the water through the drainage system? I've heard of things where they have green facilities on top on the roofs as well. So we'd want to consider those items as well. What type of partnerships would be interested in using the greenhouses? The staffing required. We all know that we're very challenged right now. Hiring staff, in particular Parks O&M, we're down 30% on our staff, which is extraordinary. I do believe that we will overcome that in the next year or two. And I do believe there would be a possibility of hiring a farm supervisor, a greenhouse horticultural supervisor, and several other staff. I think it's a unique project that would draw some interest in the future. As far as the operations, what are the utilities costs, the maintenance? A lot has changed over the years since we haven't been using them. And so what would be the cost to run them? So what my recommended next steps are is to complete an evaluation of the condition of the greenhouses and what would be the scope and the cost of making those operational, and look at it from several different perspectives as far as what's the basic, what would be a little higher level, is it one or all? But there's a lot we can look at there and understand the condition. We haven't done that. Further consideration would be evaluating the interest of the greenhouse and the partnerships for the greenhouse through the PROS master plan effort that has just kicked off. We have a plan to do a comprehensive public engagement with our community partners. It would be an opportunity to reach out to Denver Urban Gardens through that process, Project Worthmore, our communities where we have new residents that have immigrated to Aurora. What are their interests and the opportunities there as well? And so we'd like to go through the master plan process, which will finish up in about a year. And then we'll be developing a strategic plan, but ask the questions about the greenhouse and make sure we contact the appropriate people that would be interested in that and get their input as well. So I just also want to show you briefly, because Councilmember Murillo, I'm not sure how much staff talked to you about the Denver Urban Gardens vision that they shared with John Weslowski and myself back in 2018. Denver Urban Gardens representatives, the CEO at the time, came in and met with John and I and talked about the potential of renovating one of the greenhouses and creating an opportunity for people that have immigrated to to Aurora from agricultural, from their home countries that were agricultural communities. And could we establish some type of private-public partnership where they would create business, a small business opportunity or food source for the community. It was a high-level concept, and it would help with transitional employment into the city as well. What happened with that is Denver Urban Gardens did run into some financial difficulties about the time that they were talking to us shortly thereafter, and they had a change in leadership. The new leader we've not spoken to, and then COVID, quite honestly, COVID hit. So we never pursued it. We also knew that we had to do a lot of work again around what would it cost and who would be responsible and how did it fit into the priorities of the department. And I think we can establish that through the PROS master plan and also through a facilities assessment of the building. And that's what I had for today. Are there any questions?
I do have a couple, and thank you, Brooke, for the presentation. Yeah, so after being reelected to my second term, I wanted to do like a reintroduction to the city. You know, a lot changes over 4 years, so I was happy and able to get tour of our different facilities, and came across the greenhouse as a result of that. So I have toured it for that reason, and kind of found out that it was like an idle resource just kind of sitting there, right? So I began to ask questions around what is possible with that piece of property. And just I work with many organizations in the district, and obviously throughout Aurora, that try to do food access. But obviously I have more knowledge of the Ward 1 works, and that's when I found out about Denver Urban Gardens and Project Worthmore's proposal to potentially program that space, which I felt like was a win-win for the city, in that we wouldn't have an idle resource that but it, for all intents and purposes, like I think could be a really great community benefit. And that, an organization such as theirs could support community in that way, with providing culturally relevant food and potential job opportunities. And I know I did see the past proposal, so I know it's a lot more robust than just the, obviously the slide that you shared. So yeah, that was kind of the foundation for this request. Since then, I have been approached by 2 other organizations around interests, overlapping interests, and just the general direction. There are other projects going on in the northwest part of Aurora around like mapping food resources, from a like community health perspective, and trying to I guess advance kind of those types of projects that are I think will ultimately help our residents. So yeah, that's the foundation for the inquiry. I had hoped that our presentation today would be more around the specific costs. While I do think that there is some logic around adding it to the master plan, I think that waiting a year when we have community partners that are interested in taking something like this on, who I think I generally tend to agree and align that like we do need a master plan, we do need to effectively plan. But I think there is room to be nimble and kind of meet the current interest and need. I don't know what people's situation will look like in a year, right? So so I guess my my comment was to add some context and to share that I don't think that waiting a year to incorporate that when we know we kind of already know what needs to get done in order for that to happen. So yeah, my suggestion, direction would be to explore that option now. That being said, I don't know what that cost looks like. And if,
Yeah.
yeah, if you have any insight on what that study would look like to evaluate the building.
Yeah, and what I can do, that would move it along quicker is to get that conditions assessment done. And, to find some budget to do that, I'll talk to Laura. I have some ideas on how we might be able to do that. And then we'd go through purchase and find a company that can come out and do that assessment. To be honest, I think that doing that assessment will probably, with where we are with purchasing and also, and the timing of the assessment, I would imagine it's going to be a 4 to 6 month effort to get through the process. I don't think that's, I don't think that's bad. I think that's probably pretty reasonable because that puts us at worst, that puts us at the beginning of the next year. It puts us at the end of December, January. And during that time, we can reach out and talk to these different organizations and see what their interest is. And we can still incorporate it in the pros master plan while not waiting for, the completion of the master plan. So I think it can be done dually. And then, and so I would support that if that, meets with your expectations.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I'm game for all of that. I think
Okay.
that makes a lot of sense. Personally, I wanted to open the floor to the other committee members if you had any questions and if you would agree with that kind of direction to get this project moving forward.
Councilor Murillo, you
Yes.
basically you were already pushing in the same direction I wanted to inquire about, which is to hopefully be able to repurpose this for suburban food production to kind of grow, show folks how to be a little more self-sufficient, whether it's in a community asset like this or even in their own yards or gardens if they have the space. So I'm very excited in the direction the conversation's going.
All right, I'll take that as a support position. Thank you, Councilmember
Yes,
Marcano.
ma'am.
Councilmember Medina, do you have any questions and how do you feel about the direction?
Just a couple. Yeah, I think you're kind of right about trying to move it as quick as possible. There are groups in North Aurora too, Food and Communities, which has been doing a lot of work there around food, uh, scarcity there, and there's pretty big coalition there. So I'm sure a lot of people there. I know they've been working with some area farms, local farms, and they're doing a lot of work around immigrant refugees, getting them jobs in agriculture. So I think there's, like you said, a lot of connections and resources I think that we can tap to, get this started and potentially money too. So that's the other thing is I know that Tri-County Health had some money to push into some of this. So there might be opportunities to get some of that money there. I sit on that group as well. So yeah, and it's in my ward. So that's the other piece. I mean, anything we can do to help, I'm going to definitely support that. So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you make some good points, Councilmember Medina. Yeah, kind of the interest, the adding some color to the general interest. Yeah, there are, like I said, there are organizations that are actively have grants already to map out different food assets that in Northwest Aurora for, a larger purpose around, working with Tri-County or whatever the next version of Tri-County looks like, funding associated with building like a strategic plan around those things. So like there are, yeah, I 100% agree that I think there could be some funding. So I think the logical next step is, well, how much do we need to get our work done from one-time funds, and then have the conversation around operational costs, whether it's completely sourced out or what that would look like from the city commitment too. So it sounds like there's alignment with exploring how we kind of move on that sooner rather than later, and that you have some ideas on that. You know, we do have our budget workshop coming up, so if there are any, I guess, considerations that I should be aware of as we have those ongoing conversations, I hope that you will relay that, or, you know, obviously just even an update on kind of where you're thinking budget wise. And I think that, yeah, just any additional resources that you may or may not need.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I also like to add that if you haven't seen a video, there is a great little video clip over from the city of Westminster where they renovated their greenhouse. It's called the Briggs Greenhouse Garden Center. It's interesting in that they fully renovated this. This is a much larger operation. It's about 14,000 square feet. They put meeting space in it. It's not based on food, which I was surprised. It was based on, you know, the use of the plants and also some programs for teenagers heading to college to get into horticulture or agricultural careers. It's an interesting, I would say it's an interesting little snippet. I also understand that they have done a lot of different, it's not on the video, but I have talked to some people over there. They've tried some different environmentally green, sustainable efforts with that greenhouse. And that's something I think we'd also want to incorporate in any greenhouse renovation. But I think that project would show you, I mean, it's beyond what, I'm sure it was quite expensive. I don't have the cost for that, but it would show you one concept. And so we'll get some more information with regard to the cost and the condition of our current greenhouses. Because I'd also like to understand, is it really renovating them or is it a scrape off? And I want us to really understand that when we do invest money in it, whoever it is, whether it's through a grant or partnership or ourselves, and I imagine it will be all of those things, that we're doing the right thing for a long-term future for the greenhouse. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your presentation. All right. We had a very short meeting today, so we've run through the business of the meeting. I want to open it up to any updates from community members or comments that way. Let's see. I don't see any questions in our chat or our Q&A. And let's see. I don't see that anyone is just on the phone. Either for the need to unmute a phone line. And I don't see any hand raises. Is anyone looking, are we live streaming on YouTube? Is anyone looking at those comments by chance? Anyone?
I don't know if we have the chat options working yet. Hang on. Let me check.
Are you just going to check? Okay, thank you. I'm surprised I didn't get a staff
Yeah,
answer on that.
Chat is currently disabled still.
Okay. Okay, so then we wouldn't get any feedback that way. Okay. All right, so I'm not seeing any updates from community members. Want to confirm our next meeting date and time. Does the August 4th, 10 to 11:30 a.m. still work for Councilmember Medina and Councilmember Marcano?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, great. Then we will do that. All right, let's do that then. And we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Take care, y'all.